The date is April 8, 1992. Wing Stadium in Kalamazoo serves as the battleground for an episode of Superstars. And on this night, the impossible seems within reach. The Berzerker, a towering 6'8", 320-pound Viking warrior draped in animal pelts with wild eyes that promise violence, stands across the ring from the Undertaker, the Federation's supernatural phenom who had been presented as virtually indestructible since his debut. What unfolds is not the one-sided massacre many expect, but rather a brutal contest that suggests the Berzerker might actually be the monster heel the company desperately needs. The Berzerker doesn't merely compete with the Undertaker, he dominates stretches of the match in ways few men ever had. He knocks the Deadman down with his shield, the metallic crash echoing through the arena as the supposedly unstoppable force crumples to the canvas. Then comes the sword, that gleaming blade slapping against the Undertaker's flesh in a moment that blurs the line between performance and genuine danger. The crowd gasps as the Berzerker attempts to stab the Undertaker with the weapon, the point driving downward as the Phenom rolls away at the last possible second. When the Undertaker pursues Mr. Fuji, the Berzerker strikes from behind, soon overpowering the Deadman. But it's what happens next that cements this as a legendary encounter. The Berzerker tears away the protective mat at ringside, exposing the unforgiving concrete beneath, then hoists the Undertaker and drives his skull into that merciless surface with a piledriver that should end careers. The match concludes in a no contest, but something extraordinary occurs in those final moments. The Undertaker rises. Impossibly, he gets to his feet and pursues the Berzerker back through the curtain. But the damage has been done. The Berzerker has proven he belongs in the upper echelon of Federation villainy. Here is a monster heel with genuine presence, a character dripping with potential. He had already appeared at the previous year's Survivor Series, where despite his team being swept, he was the last man eliminated and looked formidable. Now, having given The Undertaker everything he could handle, the Berzerker seems destined for a legitimate run. Yet less than a year after this brutal display, by February 1993, the Berzerker will vanish from the World Wrestling Federation entirely, his departure barely making a ripple in the industry. A character with such apparent potential, a performer with the size and presence that Vince McMahon typically coveted. Gone without ceremony or fanfare. What happened? Why did a gimmick that seemed primed for success crumble so spectacularly? The answer lies not in a single catastrophic failure, but in a perfect storm of creative mismanagement and personal demons that would ultimately destroy any chance John Nord had of achieving lasting success in the world's premier wrestling organization. To understand the Berzerker's fate, we must first understand the man behind the persona. John Eric Nord was born on October 18, 1959, and entered professional wrestling in late 1984 after training under the legendary Eddie Sharkey. His early career saw him adopt various barbarian personas across multiple territories. He was the Barbarian in Mid-South Wrestling, then Nord the Barbarian in the American Wrestling Association, beginning in 1986, where he frequently tagged with the iconic Bruiser Brody. The pairing with Brody would prove prophetic in ways Nord likely never imagined. Throughout the late 80s, Nord bounced between promotions, always reinventing himself. In World Class Championship Wrestling in 1987, he feuded with Kevin Von Erich over the World Heavyweight Championship, challenging for the belt at the prestigious David Von Erich Memorial Parade of Champions at Texas Stadium. When he returned to the American Wrestling Association in 1989, he transformed into Yukon John, a lumberjack character complete with an axe, flannel shirt, and animal skin hat. He formed the Yukon Lumberjacks tag team with Scott Norton in 1990, challenging for the World Tag Team title. When the promotion folded, Nord migrated to Pacific Northwest Wrestling, forming a tag team called the Breakfast Club with the Grappler. Their post-match ritual of humiliating defeated opponents by pouring Cheerios and milk on them showcased the kind of cartoonish presentation that would both help and haunt Nord in the years to come. His arrival in the World Wrestling Federation in January 1991 would define, and ultimately destroy, his mainstream wrestling career. Initially debuting as the Viking, Nord was quickly repackaged as the Berzerker the following month, complete with legendary manager Mr. Fuji. The character was, by design, a toned-down homage to his late partner Bruiser Brody, borrowing elements of that legitimately dangerous wrestler's wild man persona. But where Brody had been authentically intimidating, the Berzerker became something altogether different. Clumsy, cartoonish, an Icelandic Norseman played for laughs rather than genuine menace. His signature method of winning matches involved throwing opponents over the top rope for a countout, but the execution was theatrical in the worst sense. He would hold his wrist, lick his hand, shout his catchphrase, "Huss, Huss," while crossing his eyes, and then fall flat on his back in an exaggerated display that undermined any sense of legitimate threat. Herein lies the first and perhaps most damaging reason the Berzerker gimmick bombed. He was positioned from the beginning as a joke, a glorified jobber, a laughingstock who existed not to win championships, but to lose to the company's real stars. While he feuded with respectable names like Davey Boy Smith, Jimmy Snuka, and The Undertaker, the feuds never elevated him. He participated in the 1992 Royal Rumble, lasting 9 minutes before being eliminated by Hulk Hogan. He won a 40-man battle royal on Primetime Wrestling in July 1992 and even challenged Bret Hart for the Federation Championship that November. But these moments felt more like participation trophies than genuine pushes toward main event status. The Federation's creative direction for the Berzerker represented a fundamental misunderstanding of how to build a monster heel. Vince McMahon and his creative team had successfully created terrifying characters before. Andre the Giant, King Kong Bundy, and The Undertaker himself had all been positioned as legitimate threats. But the Berzerker was never given that same treatment. His cartoonish mannerisms, his comedic falls, his reliance on count-out victories, all of it positioned him as entertainment rather than danger. Fans didn't fear the Berzerker, they laughed at him. Children didn't have nightmares about the wild Viking warrior, they mimicked his catchphrase as a joke. When a monster heel becomes a punchline, the gimmick is already dead. This creative misstep might have been overcome if Nord had possessed the political savvy or undeniable talent to force a course correction. But that brings us to the second, more troubling reason for the Berzerker's failure. While we must tread carefully here, we don't know all the facts. We weren't in the locker room, and we have no desire to slander a man who gave years of his life to an extraordinarily demanding profession. The reality is that John Nord's later life was marked by serious substance abuse issues that raise uncomfortable questions about what may have been happening during his Federation tenure. The public record is stark and troubling. In March 2019, Nord was arrested for his 7th DUI, a felony charge for driving while intoxicated and operating a vehicle under the influence of a controlled substance. This was merely the latest in a pattern that included 16 separate incidents over the preceding decade involving either felony or misdemeanor charges. In a 2018 appearance on Judge Mathis, Nord himself revealed that he had been in substance abuse recovery since December 2016, admitting that he and a friend had burned through a $10,000 wrestling royalty check on indulgences during a period of active addiction. These are the facts of Nord's later life, documented and undeniable. The question that haunts the Berzerker's Federation run is this: were similar issues present during 1991 to 1993? Did Vince McMahon and Federation management decide that Nord was unreliable, unprofessional, or unsafe to push due to personal demons? Professional wrestling in the early 90s was rampant with substance abuse. This was an era before wellness policies, before regular testing, before the industry began to take performer health seriously. Countless talented wrestlers saw their careers stall because they couldn't control their vices. Could John Nord have been one of them? It's impossible to say with certainty. We have no smoking gun, no confirmed reports from that period, no insider testimony that explicitly states Nord was struggling during his Federation tenure, but we can observe the pattern. A large, imposing performer with legitimate size and presence debuts in the world's biggest wrestling company. He's given a colorful gimmick and notable feuds with established stars. He appears on major pay-per-view events and is positioned, at least initially, as someone who could matter. Then, rather than building on that foundation, the company treats him as increasingly irrelevant. His last appearance comes on a February 1993 edition of Monday Night Raw, participating in a battle royal, a nothing match, a throwaway segment. the kind of appearance reserved for performers being quietly shuffled out the door. No farewell storyline, no climactic final feud, no dignified exit, just gone. Nord himself would continue wrestling after leaving the federation, working for Japanese promotions during 1992 while still under federation contract, then moving to All Japan Pro Wrestling in 1994, where he teamed with the legendary Stan Hansen. He competed in Malaysia in 1996, returned briefly to World Championship Wrestling in 1997, with a completely different look before retiring from wrestling in 1998 after losing to Bill Goldberg. Throughout all of this, Nord was clearly still capable of performing, still able to find work, still physically imposing. Yet the Federation, the company with the deepest pockets and the biggest platform, decided after just 2 years that they had seen enough. The tragedy of the Berzerker is that we'll never know what might have been if circumstances had been different. If the Federation had committed to making him a genuine monster instead of a cartoon, if personal issues weren't quietly sabotaging his career from within, if John Nord had received the help he clearly needed earlier in life, before multiple arrests and a diagnosis of amyotrophic lateral sclerosis confined him to a wheelchair and assisted living facilities. The potential was there. That April night in Kalamazoo proved it. A 6'8", 320-pound warrior who could have terrorized the World Wrestling Federation for years. Instead, the Berzerker became a cautionary tale, a reminder that size and presence aren't enough without proper creative support and personal stability. His legacy is not the championships he might have won or the classic matches he could have delivered, but rather a series of Huss chants that echoed through arenas for 2 years before fading into silence. The gimmick bombed because wrestling success requires more than just a good entrance and props. It requires commitment from both the performer and the company, clear creative vision, and the absence of personal demons that can destroy even the most promising careers. The Berzerker had a chance to be something special. Instead, he became exactly what the Federation booked him to be, a joke that nobody remembers laughing at.